over by, say, the end of 2010. And part of
that's just a little more than a year.
Correct.
What a return.
Yeah. I mean, you'll
but also, now bear in mind, this is not a good thing, okay? Because at the same time, the hyperinflation will cause us to not be able to buy as much oil, so we won't be able to move as much coal to the power plants.
Right.
So the power is going to start going off on, 2 and 3 hours a day. Pretty soon we'll be like Baghdad, where it'll be, in some areas, you'll be lucky to get 3 hours of power a day, that kind of thing.
But from a banker's standpoint, gosh,
or an economist, yes.
Yeah, from a banker's standpoint, all those homes that have been foreclosed on suddenly become worth, on paper, a lot more zeros after them. And so it becomes a very tumultuous time. And what we're personally, I think, both really focused on is trying to figure out how to get ourselves and our loved ones through there. And it's not going to be investing in paper assets like stocks and bonds and so forth. It's going to be, I'm also in the same position as Clif, owning some metalworking equipment in my shop, a good tractor, some farm animals, a year and a half of food supply, a well, solar panels. We haven't tried to get rich off this. In fact, jokingly, we refer to Clif as the chief time monk, and we've all taken this vow of poverty.
Universe forced that on us.
Well, yeah. But there ain't no point in making money. It's going to be much more important to have good walking shoes, good health, and try to figure out if the powers that be are going to eliminate either the really upstart people, the technologically savvy, so they have a new empire of dumb folks to rule over, or if they're going to do away with all the dumb folks so that they won't defend their resources, or if it's going to be a little bit of everybody, and how do we make it with our loved ones through that? That's a horrible question to be faced with every day.
Your reports have dropped in price, too, over the last few years, so you can't be making much money.
No, as a matter of fact, we used to actually be able to produce our reports because of the huge bandwidth costs, only because we had a single patron that would pay these outrageous amounts for the bandwidth required to do it. But he was Chinese, and then as a result of the certain things going on in China, it became politically unwise for us to continue that relationship.
Really? Did he react, though, in the beginning when he was using it?
Yeah, actually, his wife always called me the weather god because I told him about some flooding that was going to occur. They sold their house. 6 weeks later, the house was underwater.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
Yeah. So she really liked me. She wouldn't let him not fund it because she wanted to know. But
so once he left, or you,
we had to take on the responsibility ourselves, and the costs were huge. And my associate Igor, he had to move because he's getting a little paranoid.
Is that a real name? Igor? Igor?
No. He's so paranoid he would never, ever allow his name to be used.
Oh, okay.
I mean, he thinks the guys in the white nets are going to come and get us and haul us off to Western State, which is the local mental institution. And
I don't know if they take you to a mental institution, but they could try to take you away somewhere. You never know.
That's one of his real concerns. He's ex-military, and he's seen some nasty stuff, so yeah. But in any event, we've had some costs, so no, it's not like we're not a candidate to show up on anybody's list in Forbes or anything like that. And actually, it doesn't matter. People that have dollars have to realize that those dollars are rapidly waning in usefulness. And from November 4th of this year through November 2nd of next year, over a year's course of time, the data suggests the dollar as the global reserve currency will go away, and that will cause huge disruptions here in the U.S. that will make a lot of those dollars, like I say, absolutely as worthless as Confederate currency.
Well, it's important.
If I can,
go ahead.
The other problem with too many dollars is they're in the data next year when we get into the expression of revolution and anti-wealth, if you will, starts to break out, that actually being associated with the banking class, the banksters, officialdom will become a personal liability to the point where some of the imagery describes attacks on gated communities of banksters and financial types with and this gets grisly, families being thrown back into the fires of the attacks.
It's quite horrific, yes. And that we needn't go that way. I think we can be smarter than that way and just express revolution in a quieter fashion and still control our own destinies, because it seems silly that we should go on killing each other, especially innocents. But it's understandable, the rage levels that will be coming on out, because we've got this other theme going called Secrets Revealed. You have to understand that as the economy starts taking hit after hit after hit, and we're seeing it now express itself, the government starts coagulating. They start dropping off this service, dropping off that service, like in California and so on. As it gets into the federal states, or the federal activities, we're going to see subcontractors come on out and reveal themselves, and knowing a whole lot more than has been told to the public, and the secrets revealed meme will build upon itself, and pretty soon people will get so fed up that there will be this base level of rage at anybody that represents the powers that be, or what we call their minion class, the political elites and so on. Hopefully it won't affect the good people that are actually working in government diligently, not aware that they're necessarily serving a not-so-nice end.
But the personal bottom line is, if you exhibit conspicuous consumption of any kind, it's like the mob of villagers with the pitchforks and torches can turn on you. So if you're thinking about buying an upscale car, that's why we haven't really bothered pursuing paper dollars, because
or any of that.
Yeah, it's getting through it that matters.
Well, let's come back and take phone calls with all of you now on Coast to Coast AM. Well, you've heard what George and Cliff have to say. Now we're going to take your phone calls with them in a moment on Coast to Coast AM. Cliff, are you glad you created this, or are there sometimes you wish you had not?
Most days. I wish I had not. I always, my career objective was to be a boat bum or some other, productive thing in universe. But somehow I stumbled into this.
It haunts you sometimes, doesn't it?
It certainly does, no question about it. And it can be quite torturous, yes.
How do you feel about that, George?
It's a bummer. On the one hand, it's nice having some guidance in terms of expectations about the future, what to plan for, how to conduct your life, the necessity of going green, going local before it becomes mandatory and people are lined up for food. But at the same time, while it's nice to be able to spread the word in advance of events, there's also some almost a sense of depression about it, because it really is a bummer. And frankly, the way we cope with it is, gallows humor at times.
And lots of pie.
And lots of pie, oh yeah. Yeah, Cliff is big on pie, and I just go out and talk to the goats and explain to the goats that they're smarter than we humans. I feed them every day. They don't pay income tax. Got to admit, my goats are pretty smart.
All right. What about the prediction about the Vatican being looted? What is that all about?
That appears to be actually a side effect of food riots. That the food riots are going to affect us in the Northern Hemisphere simply because the grain crops are going to fail. They're already failing. We're in like the 7th or 8th year of that. It's going to get worse as we get these large holes in the magnetosphere. We're going to get ultraviolet scorching of food crop plants, mainly in the Northern Hemisphere, but probably below the 40th parallel of latitude. And that's going to cause a lot of pressures on the systems at the same time that hyperinflation hits and deflation in this weird way. So they won't be delivering food to a lot of areas. It leads to a real squeeze on food, apparently in the winter. So it'd be the winter of 2010 or perhaps into towards spring of 2011 at the latest. And we're looking at a situation in which riots in Rome spill over.
Interesting.
And they fight back at the Vatican, and it causes things to get worse.
All right, let's go to the phones. We'll go to Indiana, Pennsylvania. How about that? Yeah, Ken, first-time caller. Hi, Ken.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great, thanks.
I had a two-part question for Cliff and George. In reading the most recent report, they had talked about the two possible scenarios for Act 1, one being the radiation cloud that circles the globe 9 times. And they gave a number for the potential fatalities on that, I believe in the 1 billion area. And the second alternative, that being the swine flu or pandemic, some alternative virus of that, would the numbers of dead be similar in that scenario?
Exactly the same, sir. The issue is not the cause, but it's rather a combination. We have to discuss it as separate little chunks, but it's everything taken together. Food crisis, flu, and potential radioactivity all contribute to that number.
Okay. And then the second part of my question was, as far as the availability of the electricity and or internet, would you see a possible time frame on that becoming pretty fuzzy?
A lot appears to occur sometime after the 11th of July next year as the crisis in the dollar globally and some of the other instances that occur over spring really come to a head. And it appears that it'll be spotty, that the Internet will act as designed and not go down as a total thing, but there may be big chunks of it that aren't reachable in any given week.
There is on a personal planning layer. It's worth noting that both Clif and myself have made serious personal investments in solar panels so we can at least become self-sufficient in energy. And then at my ranch, for example, besides a regular pipe onto the Internet, I've also invested in a satellite system that I use frequently as a backup. So the net may or may not be reachable, but if you have several points onto the net, a dial-up system, maybe something like DSL or cable, and then a satellite, then you'll at least be able to access the net as long as it's up for practical purposes.
Indeed. Windsor, Canada, we go international line. Hello, Barry. Thank you. Go ahead.
Hello. Hi, George and Cliff. Good talking to you, and another great show, George.
Thank you.
I've been purchasing your reports for some time now, and I just finished reading the current one. And first of all, how about a comment? I just want to let you guys know I've been a fan of your website for many years now, and last year you saved me a boatload of money.
How big a boatload?
Well, good.
All my retirement savings.
Well, now he's in a yacht.
No, not yet. I'm still working, but basically I got out of the stock market last summer. The mutual funds I had, I got rid of them all and put them in a money market, and as a result, I haven't lost a dime, and I have to thank you guys for it. You know, you've earned a lot of credibility with me, and I hope half of what you're saying in the latest report doesn't come true.
I hope most of it doesn't. I hope we're terribly wrong.
But should it happen, the question I've got for you two is what effect do you see on the Canadian economy? I know our economies are tied fairly tight. We see a lot of fluctuations in the U.S. dollar with the U.S. going down and the Canadian going up. But overall, what do you see happening on the Canadian side of the business?
In the near term, chaos, but real good news from like 2013 onward, because there's this strange juxtaposition of anti-polar sites for what we call the new electric. So Canada and South Africa will be sharing the limelight, if you will, as we proceed in this conjunction. So it'll actually end up being Canada, South Africa, and Russia are going to form this alliance and pushing us through into this new technology. However, the next 4 or 5 years, it's going to be anybody's guess as to what's going to happen in any local environment up there. In general, you will be pressed upon by the damage being suffered by the dollar.
On the other hand, you do have the resources, and for those who have not had the advantage of reading the report, the new electrics is the part in model space where there is a technology coming along which will not necessarily be controlled by the powers that be, and which is based on mathematics that relates to zero-point energy that's becoming widely acknowledged outside the United States, but it isn't part of our teaching and educational paradigm yet.
Right, and the Canadian thing, by the way, goes to some level of crystals. You guys have got some kind of crystalline element up there that will become very strategic.
Interesting. Let's talk a little bit more about Israel and Iran for just a moment. If there is an attack, if Israel attacks Iran, and they're going through exercises now, so who knows what's going to happen. What about the outcome? Do you get the outcome through the web?
Yeah, I was hoping we wouldn't have to go there.
Well, we have to touch on it a little bit.
The scenario, the way it plays out, point by point, is that the Israelis fly a bunch of jets over to do a bombing. About half of them don't make it.
Got permission already to go over Saudi Arabia?
Right. Well, they won't make it very much further than that because they're not expecting something that the Iranians have. No point in going there. Half of the jets just basically disappear at that point. Unfortunately, a number of them get through and go to secondary and third-level targets, and it's at that point that the Israelis use probably a nuclear-tipped bunker buster, hitting a target that they don't expect to be there, or they hit something they're not aware of, is